Welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live, everybody. I am Jim, joined as always by Tom. Tom, Lions getting the big national exposure in week one. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, the schedule release from the NFL last night has me really excited. You should know, listeners should know. I've been excited about the Lions regardless of this, but this just like sweetens the pot, right? Like to get the first game of the year, defending Super Bowl champions, standalone game, and then the rest of the season just really sets up well. Like, Halloween's a big thing in our family. We'll only have one trick or treater in the fall, and we'll probably trick or treat on actual Halloween, which is Tuesday, but the night before a home Monday night game against the Raiders. We were just chatting briefly before we hit record today about the benefits of if you have to travel for work, being intentional about your time, right? In the place you find yourself for work. I'd love to find myself in Detroit for work on October 30th with a stayover to be able to go to that Monday night game, but I won't speak that into existence this morning.
There you go. Yeah, the NFL schedule, it always gets me amped up for the season. I'm excited for my Bears this season. They start right away with their biggest rival, the Packers. So that'll be fun. And
interesting, you can bring up the Packers. The Packers and the Lions have two games that are spotlight games, one on Amazon Prime, one on Thanksgiving. It's so surprising that that's a spot that the Packers are getting with just the kind of the emphasis around the venue, not the venue, the platform that's hosting both of those games. One would make sense. Thanksgiving Day, I'd have zero.
Thanksgiving makes sense, right?
Yeah. But to have that Amazon Prime game on the Thursday early in the season, I think it's week 4. It just is interesting to me. Clearly, they think there's going to be some storyline with the Packers, one way or the other, right? Does Jordan Love, do we find out quickly who Jordan Love is, and that he is the next, incarnation of the lineage of Green Bay quarterbacks who come in and then eventually become all pros? Or is this completely upside down world for the Green Bay Packers? And we've spent way much more time as both Bears and Lions fans talking about the Packers than I care to this morning. So we're going to cut that right there.
Yep. and even the Bears game that week 1 is in the 3:00 time slot, which I thought was interesting, given exactly what you just said. So yeah, it's exciting. Both of us love football, and this is just another step towards the fall getting here, and every Sunday becoming really important again in the sports world.
And I like how you said the 3:00 time slot, which was really foreign to me. But then I remember that you're an hour behind me, so really it's the 4:00 Eastern time slot. But yes,
yeah, football's on at 12 and 3 in my world. That is. So, well, anyways, this isn't a football podcast, although as usual we squirrel many different ways, and actually only a 3.5 minute squirrel is pretty tame for us. But we weren't with you last week. We made our Backlash picks 2 weeks ago, and because they had already announced 7 matches, and those ended up being the only 7 matches on Backlash, which was kind of nice that worked out for us in our favor, since we knew we wouldn't be able to record last week. So head to head Backlash, we both did well, 6-1. You did change your pick, which we left that caveat open. In the U.S. title match, you had originally picked Bronson Reed, which in the end wouldn't have made any sense with Reed going to Raw and Lashley and Theory both going to SmackDown and Gunther going to Raw. So the IC title moving to Raw, the U.S. title moving to SmackDown. So you did change to Austin Theory, which, like I said, we left that caveat that the draft was going to probably mess something up, and that was the one it kind of messed up for us. So you had made that change, and I was disappointed you made it, but it made sense. Because my first thought was, if he doesn't change that, I think that's a pretty well, or we were both going to be wrong, and Lashley won, which first Fantasy Wrestling League mention would have made me happy there. So, but Theory keeping it made sense. But and I was going to pull up those results. Actually, I do have them here. So yeah, Tom, did you see Backlash?
I did. I watched it on the Sunday that followed.
Okay. Yep.
Well, oh yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, we talked about this before we hit record too. I came back from a out of town trip last week. Came back with a little bit of a cold. Saturday kind of was struggling through the day. Really hit me hard on Sunday. So Sunday I was, really laid up, just resting, and it gave me the chance to really just be intentional about watching Backlash. So.
Yeah, and I ended up seeing most of it Saturday night and then finished it up on Sunday. So just the quick results, if there's anything we want to touch on. The Raw Women's title match, Bianca Belair defended successfully against Io Sky, Seth Rollins over Omos. The U.S. title three-way, Austin Theory, as we mentioned, defended against Bronson Reed and Bobby Lashley successfully. The SmackDown Women's title, Rhea Ripley over Zelina Vega. The San Juan Street Fight, Bad Bunny over Damian Priest. The six-man tag, which was the one match we each missed, the Usos and Solo, the Bloodline over Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Matt Riddle, and then Cody Rhodes over Brock Lesnar in the main event of the show. Overall, I thought it was a really strong show, a really strong premium live event. I still want to call it a pay-per-view. But I enjoyed there wasn't anything on it that I thought was bad. Even Rollins Omos was, fine. I won't say it was great or anything, but it was Omos. It might have been Omos's best match ever, which I realize there's a low bar to cross for that. But I mean, I thought that was good too. Yeah, I thought it was all good, and I thought it was a coming out party for Io Sky would be kind of my big takeaway from Backlash. I don't know what did you feel about the show, Tom?
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. It was an incredibly strong in-ring show. The flow was great. I laughed. I know you made a comment about how you and I each had the same level of Peacock. So when they were going to match kind of like summaries, like the little video packages beforehand, you and I both get commercial breaks. So we don't get a chance to see that. And you had a really great comment about, they went to the 1 minute preview of why we were getting Omos and Seth Rollins. And you were like, you made a great comment offline of this podcast, I should say, that, we now go to Triple H throwing a dart at a dartboard. So yeah, no, my only critique, I think, about Backlash maybe was the order of the final three matches.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know if Brock getting busted open in the way he did was intentional. Clearly, I think that spot was planned because they removed the turnbuckle.
Yeah, they intended blood. I'm just not sure it was that much of a sure.
Yeah, right. And so if all of that was and is how it was, meant to play out, the factor of that finish was, I don't want to call it anticlimactic because I really like the story aspect of it. And it speaks to Cody kind of, outsmarting Brock, which really this is what needed to happen. I think that could have happened in the Bad Bunny Damian Priest spot and give Bad Bunny Damian Priest the main event. Not that it deserves to be the main event, but if you have Bad Bunny as the host, if you're in Puerto Rico,
where both of them are from,
if you have all of the other gaga that they had with Carlito and Savio Vega,
which was great.
Yeah, that to me just would have really justified it, and you would have went off the air with a little bit more of an upbeat finish than you did with Cody and Brock, because it was really weird. Like Cody ran to the back almost, and it was like there was no celebration, and for all of
he knew he was going to get his ass beat if he hung around.
Well, right, and for all of the angst and anger and desire to one up Brock, to not have him really spend a moment basking in that for just and maybe what we got led to what we got on Monday, which was pretty intense and pretty crazy, with Brock coming out and attacking him and laying him out. And now I'm really interested for Night of Champions and their fight. What will their fight be different? How will they make that different from what we got at Backlash? And I also felt, because of the energy, which the crowd was fantastic all night long, but because of the energy in the Bad Bunny and Damian Priest match, I felt like the six man was just a tad flat. I loved the storyline between, I think it was Jimmy Uso, maybe it was Jay. I you know me, I always mess the Usos up. And Solo, because there was at one point where he chopped him to get tagged in, and like the red on Solo's chest for a man of a darker complexion, and the look of like, brother, what are you, like, I'm gonna rip your head off. That was great to me. And again, once again, we've mentioned it here multiple times too, the Bloodline storyline just continuing to have layers and depth that few stories do. This was a great example of that now. And tonight, as we enter Friday with SmackDown coming up, I think Roman Reigns is back, and it's the first time in quite a while. So having him have
night after Mania, maybe?
I mean, I think so, yeah. So like him having his voice and being able to like engage and respond to all of the things that have gone on. There's been quite a bit going on behind the scenes. So that's the only kind of additional commentary that I'll make. Yeah, it started off, to your point, with that really hot women's title match with Bianca and Io, and that was just great.
And I 100% agree with you and share the same thought of the match order situation, and the fact that was a little bit of a weird ending for a pay-per-view main event, with Cody with the kind of, leverage roll-up kind of thing, or whatever you want to. I like when matches end sometimes like that, where it's not, oh, okay, 4 finishers and then we go to the, and then we get the pin, where it is kind of out of nowhere, a smart wrestler caught another wrestler. I like that. It's just weird to end a pay-per-view like that. And I agree with you, that crowd was just awesome. They were awesome Friday night for SmackDown. They were awesome Saturday night for Backlash. And Priest and Bunny just would have made more sense in the final match, to have that crowd still just roaring at the end, instead of kind of like, wow, that was cool. What happened? And I will say it was a little unfortunate. I don't know if you've seen any of Raw from Monday night, but after 2 nights, Friday night and Saturday night, of just one of the better crowds in a long time, boy, it made Monday night's crowd seem like they sucked.
No, 100%. I'm with you there. I saw someone comment in a different, probably somewhere on Twitter, just like these pay-per-view premium live event shows that are really like outside the norm. So like, think back to Clash at the Castle. Think to this one. When you can get in front of a crowd that probably hasn't had their appetite for wrestling met in a long time, they elevate the level of the show. So then you go to Jacksonville, who gets, probably 6 shows a year, whoop-de-darn do, even though they should have probably been more excited because they had what I would argue as being a really newsworthy show, and events. Yeah, it felt really flat in comparison.
I liked it. I didn't like. Having Cody open in Jacksonville on Monday night made sense. And, and it didn't even dawn on me until he said, Jacksonville, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I love that he gave the nod to the fact that Jacksonville is where he had spent the pandemic and, did some things. And, of course, never mentions AEW by name, but
Double A got mentioned. His former coach, Double A.
That's true. But it was weird, the order of things then on Raw. Like, you have Cody come out and go, let the tournament begin. And he's in a match in the tournament and he's dressed, ready to go. And then he leaves. Like, see you later. That was just weird. Like, have him in his suit then when he does that. And then later on, he's going to be in the match. I like the little glare between he and Rollins. I thought that was very cool. And maybe that's why they had Cody open it to get to that point. But I don't know. There was a different way you could have done that. It was just weird for Cody to come out and be like, the world title tournament is starting. Yay. I'm going to leave now. And he's in it.
Yeah.
Is a segue.
To that glare with that history between them, like to have them go to create that potential tension of people going, oh, this might be what we get tonight. And then to have them steal that, Brock, like puts more heat on Brock in case people were were wanting to cheer Brock, because I'm sure there is a segment of the audience that does. But
Sure.
if you really were like, oh, Brock not only screws Cody, so I don't like him for that, he also took the chance of Cody versus Seth. So that's interesting. One more comment on Backlash, and I don't know if you noticed this, but I just wanted to call that out because I was hyper aware of it, which is super funny to me because normally these are things that you don't really like intentionally like see because it's been so commonplace. When Brock got busted open, that referee took a long time to get the black gloves out, and I was really concerned and confused as to why. Just because I'm conditioned that whenever we see blood for any reason, usually in a match, immediately the ref's in the pocket, guy has the black medical gloves on. It was a number of minutes in the main event, and I don't get why. And like the commentators never tell us, yep, there's blood, so the referee's taking the necessary steps to be to be safe. If they did, and then they explain why not here, it would make more sense. But that's just not a thing. But it's a visual observation.
I saw somebody online make a comment that if it's a planned spot, they don't go for the gloves. And if it's an unintentional spot, they do, which makes zero sense to me because it's still blood.
Yeah, blood is blood.
I have to take a bloodborne pathogens class every year for my job, both at this job and my previous job. So I've studied up on it, and they do not say if someone intentionally cuts themselves, no need for gloves. That's not a rule. So when I read it, I was like, I'm fairly sure the person who said that has no idea what they're talking about, but I thought it was an interesting observation in it, at least. Like, well, okay. I mean, if it was planned, sure, but yeah, no, it was a little weird. So Backlash was fun, which led us into the WWE World Heavyweight Title tournament on Raw and now SmackDown tonight.
Let's start there. Why? Okay. Yep. So we were really clear coming out of the draft. The minute that Roman Reigns
Triple H said it on the mic.
I know. The minute Roman Reigns gets drafted, this is Raw's title. And then you come out last week and then you go, it's going to be half on Raw and half on SmackDown. And for that second part of the statement, you're like, huh?
And the only thing that would have made a little bit of sense to me, so they said, I read somewhere that the reason they're doing that is because they're trying, much like AEW did this week with their show, they're trying to stack this week because of the NBA playoffs and ratings, and they know they're going to take a hit. Okay, I get that. But still make it 12 Raw guys and just say, and as a special feature, we're going to have, a couple of these matches on SmackDown featuring Raw brand talent.
Yeah, even though the draft has taken effect.
Right. We're going to spread it out, and SmackDown's going to get to host some of these matches as a neutral site or whatever. Like, there's a way you could do that and still have some of the matches on SmackDown. And I realized that to get the biggest name talent, you probably have to use some SmackDown because you've split your biggest name talent. But I would bet, and I haven't, I wanted to pull the rosters and say if we didn't have SmackDown talent and we wanted to do 12 men, which is a dumb number to do in a tournament, and the way they're doing it is stupid, but we'll do that. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yes, we will.
There were other people that could have been in it. I mean, there just were. Or take the 6 Raw guys you have, add 2. You don't have to do 12 then. You could do 8. 8 works in a tournament, right? It's 4 matches, it's 2 matches, it's 1. It's pretty simple. You could easily find 2 other guys on Raw. I wouldn't even have to probably work that hard. Gunther would have been a good one, although maybe you don't want Gunther taking a loss, and he was on his honeymoon last week, so timing-wise maybe doesn't work for him either. But yeah, Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, right there. Any one of those 3 guys, any combination of them. So yeah, you could have done that. Having SmackDown guys, so basically what you've said is, congratulations, Seth Rollins, you've won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship by making it to that match. Or are they going to just be crafty to be crafty, and whoever wins the SmackDown spot, gets to the finals from the SmackDown side of the bracket, wins the title and now moves to Raw or something? Like, in which case you should just put them on Raw anyways, and you're just making things complicated and make them complicated.
And it's unnecessary because
You ain't kidding.
yeah, just like give us something to really care about and root for, but like don't convolute it. And that's what's happened here in a number of ways. Number one, we're really beating it up, but it deserves it. Having the inclusion of SmackDown, even though the way you laid it out, it makes a lot of logical sense to say, yep, let's fill this tournament with top name talent. A good example, I think one of the matches tonight, let me pause there. We'll come back to that. Let's first talk about the Raw side.
I have the matches pulled up for tonight because I figured we would.
Sure. So let's first talk about the Raw side. So I guess let's start with the tournament. 12 men, which again, weird number for a tournament. However, like I'm thinking old school NFL playoffs before the playoffs expanded a few years ago. 6 teams qualify, 4 division winners and 2 wild cards. Okay, cool. So here's what you do. Before they announced the format, I was like, all right, 2 guys are getting buys, and they're gonna have 2 first round matches. Those will go on, and we'll have a 6-match tournament. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 match tournament to determine. That clearly didn't happen because we had 2 3-ways. Again, that's goofy as heck because then 2 of the 6 don't take the pinfall and get screwed by circumstance. So there's that. The other idea that I really have a hard time with, and I'll throw it to you. I feel like I'm talking a lot, so I apologize.
You're good.
Why the urgency to get through this tournament so quickly? Night of Champions is not happening until 3 weeks from tomorrow, or 2 weeks from tomorrow. Okay, 2 weeks from tomorrow, this is happening.
Yep.
You have multiple TV events that can get us there without having Seth Rollins being in the spot he's in. I think we've already said that. So I know you're going to run down the matches from Monday, which will tell us how Seth Rollins got there. But I don't know. You and I are both tournament marks, so maybe I'm falling back into my like love for tournaments and wishing that they had given us more than they did.
Yeah, it's just bizarre to me. Like, yeah, the 12 man thing, and then the three ways. And I agree with you. Rushing through this thing, you got Raw next week. You got 2 more Raws, 2 more, and let's not even talk about SmackDowns because you don't need to do any of this on SmackDown. It's a Raw title. Let SmackDown do SmackDown things. Roman's on SmackDown tonight. He's the champ there. Let that be a thing. Don't focus on the Raw title on SmackDown. It's just, especially
if we had 8. Yeah, if we had 8 men, you do 4 first round matches this past Monday, you do the semifinals this Monday, and you do the final in the days leading up. Like the Monday prior to Night of Champions, you have, well, you wouldn't have the final then. You'd have the final. Maybe you have the contract signing with the belt in the middle and both guys having tension, whatever it is.
Right. There's easy ways you could do that. So on Monday, Seth Rollins defeated Shinsuke Nakamura and Damian Priest. Which I like Shinsuke and Damian being in the tournament. Neither of them were probably going to win the title, we knew, but and that was really good. I did see that match. That was very good. I have not yet seen the other tournament match, which is Finn Balor over The Miz and Cody, and I don't know if I'll get to it or not. Raw is kind of one of those shows that someday. It's a long show. And then Seth beats Finn in the and Finn wins that match because of Brock's interference. Like Cody had it won. And then Brock interferes and Finn gets the win, which I'm okay with. Again, in that one, you knew The Miz wasn't winning. I mean, I don't know. The Miz doesn't win much of anything. So putting him in this, other than the fact that he's a former world champion, didn't make a ton of sense either. Just looking at the wrestlers who were on Raw on Monday, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, either of those would have made sense. Even Dominic could have made some sense. He's been winning a fair amount of matches lately, to be honest. Although I think Dominic, the heat Dominic gets right now is just crazy. Like he's kudos to the guy. He's getting crazy amounts of heat. I think he at least will be in Money in the Bank because I think the heat of just him going up the ladder and the crowd hating at the thought of him being anywhere near that briefcase, I think would be really fun. I don't think he wins it. Probably. I think Cody probably wins it, but that's a story for another prediction show.
So
Tonight's
just real quick on Nakamura. So super interesting because he was on SmackDown. He got drafted to Raw. There was a big spot on the Friday before Backlash where it was a built match between Karrion Kross and Shinsuke Nakamura. I'm really confused because Shinsuke Nakamura got the win. I go back to 40 years ago. If a guy is leaving the territory, he puts over talent on the way out, right? This is not
where Karrion Kross is.
and he's staying on SmackDown, right? So why in the world? And they've been building these things where Kross is saying as he's fighting these opponents, I'm taking this from Drew McIntyre. I've taken this.
I thought that was super interesting actually when he did that. I was like, oh, here's a twist. I like Karrion Kross somewhat, but I thought that was really interesting. It had a little bit of the Sean O'Hare, but I'm not telling you anything you didn't know character.
Yeah. Here's a chance to have Shinsuke lose and still be in this tournament and leave SmackDown with Karrion Kross in a better position than he is. Again, I don't think that WWE writers, Bruce Pritchard probably particularly, think that people care enough about wins and losses, but Bruce Pritchard, I know you're not listening to Two Spot Monkeys, most likely you should, but we do care. Jim and I are not the only segment of the population that care about wins and losses. There's a lot of people who do. All that being said, Shinsuke having that victory and then Rollins beating him does, to me, mean more. But then I'm not happy that on his first night on Raw, he takes the loss. Granted, I don't think Damian Priest should have taken the loss there either. But that is how you crafted the tournament. You could have adjusted who was in, to me.
And again, if you do it as singles matches, you could still have them take the loss, but have them right there. We'll talk about Dynamite here in a little bit. I don't think Daniel Garcia was hurt at all by his loss to Orange Cassidy on Wednesday night. You can do a match where somebody takes the loss and it doesn't hurt them at all. And it's a little easier to do that in a singles than a three-way, I think. Speaking of wins and losses not meaning anything, I mean, Natalya apparently is the next challenger for what I assume is now the Raw Women's title. And Sean Ross Sapp, in one of the podcasts I was listening to this week, pointed out in the last 2 years, I think it is, she's won one match on Raw or SmackDown. And here she is. And I like Natalya. Natalya's good. And she's could be a credible challenger, but I don't know, give her a couple of wins. Maybe she could have beat Dana Brooke instead of Rhea this week. And then she could have beat somebody else. Give her 2 or 3 wins and then have her say, I want a title shot. It at least gives you a reason. Not just, well, I need a challenger and here comes Natalya. And I'm sorry. Much like the match with Zelina, which I thought was really good. And I thought that especially the response for Zelina there in Puerto Rico was amazing. But nobody thought Zelina was winning that match. Nobody thinks Natalya's winning this match. Rhea's still waiting for an actual challenger that anybody's they could. They might switch it. Nobody, give me a break. Tonight's matches, just to get there, AJ Styles, Edge, and Rey Mysterio. And that actually could be really fun. And there's a lot of history you can play off there with all of those guys. And then Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, and Sheamus. I don't know who Austin Theory made mad, but he was in a 3-way with Bronson Reed and Bobby Lashley, and now he's in a 3-way with Bobby Lashley and Sheamus. He's getting a tar beat out of him right now as U.S. champ. But if I had to predict, I would say tonight it comes down to Edge and maybe Theory, and then maybe Edge and Rollins at Night of Champions. I'm trying to think what makes the most sense.
Yeah, I was going to go AJ Lashley and AJ coming out.
Okay. So, yeah. And
again,
these aren't head-to-head picks by any means. These are just kind of...
What and my thinking there. So to your point, before I articulate why I think I have an idea, Edge and Rollins did have that big match, if I'm not mistaken, in Saudi a few years ago. So this would I think bring them back to that. And Edge being
that was me kind of figuring that Edge is going to be in Saudi because he wants that Saudi payday.
Yeah. So yep, that's fair. I am going AJ because I think him being re-injected into the scene, being healthy again, having been on the shelf for a while, he deserves. The spot is warranted for a man of his talent, and I think have we ever had a Seth Rollins AJ Styles match? I'm sure we have, but again, our research team, they really don't. They get paid breadcrumbs, so I don't blame them for not having that.
We did decide to give him breadcrumbs now. Okay, that was nice. The crackpot team of me is quickly pulling that information up. Yes, it does appear. June of 2022 was Seth and AJ's last one-on-one match on Raw, and it was on Raw. Pay-per-view wise,
so that was like less than a year ago, and I can't remember, which is really sad.
Last pay-per-view match between the two, or premium live event, whatever, was Money in the Bank 19. The Universal title, Rollins defended against AJ.
Okay, that would have been the match. Like, without knowing that was the match, that would have been like, kind of a major spot, right?
Right.
So like
everything else they had was on Raw.
Yeah.
And it's only been 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 singles matches.
The real crazy thing for me tonight, at least, when you compare these matches to what happened on Raw. So on Raw, you had, Rollins, Nakamura, Priest, so babyface, heel. And then you had Finn, Miz, Cody, heel, babyface. Tonight, you've got AJ, Edge, Ray. I think all three are baby faces.
Yeah, AJ seems maybe in the middle a little bit with the way they've presented the OC, but they beat the Viking Raiders, so that seems to make them baby faces.
Yeah, and Ray's taking the pinfall or whatever. Like, there's no way he's not. Unfortunately, Ray is just being used as like, the guy who puts people over. The other match is one that I'm a little bit more interested in, right? Because like I feel like Lashley and Theory has more legs, which maybe means Sheamus gets the win because someone does someone to the other to build a future U.S. title match. I don't know who takes the pinfall there, unless it's Theory or Lashley to give them more to further their issue.
Yeah. No, they'll be good matches tonight, and the tournament will be good. They were good matches on Monday night. I've heard the Seth Finn match was really, really good.
It was. It was. Now, going back to Raw just real quick, Drew McIntyre's on Raw. Yes. He's hurt though. Yes.
There was some injury, and it still sounds like there's some turmoil there between he and WWE, and his contract is up next April. So you're like, well, figure it out for a little while here, folks. We're only in May.
You got 11 months on your contract. Go to work.
Right. Show up. But it did sound like there was some nagging things that he'd worked. He wanted to get through Mania to work that 3-way. So it does sound like there's some injury stuff. But he's absolutely, if he was healthy enough, would have been a name that should have been in this tournament. So yeah. I got to think the injury isn't quite healed enough. Because we haven't, other than him getting drafted, we haven't heard boo from him in a while. So. Well, we'll see who the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion is. If I had to put any sort of money on it that means anything to me in my life, I would be putting it all on Seth Rollins right now. Because
absolutely,
I just think the SmackDown is for who gets to go. It's kind of like, there are some years where, to go back to our football conversation earlier, where it seems like one conference is far stronger than the other. Like right now, I would say the AFC is stronger. You have 3 or 4 teams there. You're like, it's almost like the NFC is playing to find out who gets to go lose to the Chiefs, Bengals, or Bills in the Super Bowl. Although the Eagles and Niners, and maybe the Lions, who knows? We'll see. I am picking the Lions to win that division this year when we get to our football picks in the fall, just so you know, barring injuries or, weird things. Anyways, Tom, you were in Detroit on Wednesday night and got to see, from what I understand, from what I've heard, and I've seen about first hour 15, one hell of a good Dynamite. Your second AEW experience live, I believe. You had Blood and Guts a year ago or so. And then, so apparently Cages in Detroit is the thing. They're coming to Detroit, they're putting a cage up. So I'm just curious, how was I know you and I were messaging a little bit on Wednesday evening. No Ring of Honor taping because they had just taped a number of shows over the weekend at Universal Studios. No Dark or Dark Elevation. Those have now gone away because apparently in part of what will be announced next week. We'll talk about that in a little bit. With the Warner Brothers extension or new deal or whatever you want to call it, whatever it's being looked at as, they'll be exclusive to Warner Brothers. So those YouTube shows went away, which is probably good because it seems they're adding another 2-hour show that's going to matter. So I know you had a couple of dark matches that may just never see the light of day. They might actually be dark matches. And then Dynamite and Rampage. How was the experience?
Yeah, so completely different experience from when I went to Dynamite a year ago to now, and it makes sense again with a lot of those things that you named and some of the evolution. And I would imagine too, AEW is, dare I say, progressive, but they're progressive in developing it as a promotion still, right? So, and again, I'll say this too, like I had kind of a framework for what I was anticipating maybe on Wednesday. And the first time I had no framework. It was my first time at AEW. So just, I'd been to live wrestling, I've been to TV wrestling before, but it's a different company. So all of those things, it's not a pattern that everybody follows. So yeah, so I was in the venue quite early on Wednesday, and things didn't even really get going until just after 7 Eastern. And there were 2 dark matches, as you mentioned. We got Willow and Sky Blue over Nyla Rose and Marina Shafir. So that kicked us off. And then you had QT Marshall and Aaron Solo with their valet, who I know you know the name, but I'm forgetting it. And then Powerhouse.
Yeah, I see right now. Yep.
They came out, and of course QT runs down, the city of Detroit. Preston Vance then comes out because he's from Detroit, even though he is a heel in LFI. And he's like, yeah, I'll defend Detroit. And people are like, yes, all right. So like, it's kind of a cool, like local hometown pop. And he's like, I don't have anybody else to be my teammate from Detroit, but I have somebody from Canada and he lives in Detroit. And then we get Ethan Page, because apparently Ethan Page is Canadian, but he's moved to Detroit, I think, to be more accessible to flying to all of the spots. And so it's Ethan Page and Preston Vance, an odd couple, as we joked when we were messaging. You're like, I didn't realize Battle Bowl was taking place tonight in Detroit against QT Marshall and Marshall, whatever. Against Aaron Solo. And Hobbs hit a brutal double clothesline on Page and Vance before the bell rang. So that really gave the heels kind of the spot and let everybody work from behind on the babyface side. It was fine. The whole idea was to get the city excited and people ready for the live TV event that was going to happen. So it was all good. It was fine. Again, yeah, and the weird part about it though, only because we got like video packages later on with Ethan Page, and he wasn't, set up in a babyface role, but he was set up as a babyface role in this dark match. But yeah, so then we go live right on the air, and the cool thing was they had done the intros for both of the competitors in the opening match before Dynamite started. And a great night of wrestling straight away. When I say that the 6-man tag was the least enjoyable match, but it was still high quality, like that really kind of tells you like what a great night of wrestling it was and how fast it moved. I will say the commercial breaks really felt long to me when I knew that they were in commercial. If there was ever, I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it. I will be watching it on demand later today, because it's always different with commentary. And I really want to hear the commentary around the opener and the international title and the main event for sure. The lighting for the new House of Black rules matches was super interesting. That was a really denotable.
And that's the spot I'm at. They're just about, they just did the backstage segment. Did you see the backstage segment with Best Friends and Bandito where they picked their rule?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And they said no. Our rule for the match is no witches at ringside or something along those lines.
Which I hope they don't treat the rule like that. You get to pick a rule. That's an interesting twist. I hope they don't treat it like a joke every time. With Best Friends, it made sense because that's kind of their shtick. But and Bandito and Best Friends is a little weird to me still. I want him to mean more, and I don't. Outside of Orange, I don't feel like that group means a ton. So, anyways, that's a different AEW thing.
Yeah.
So that's the match I'm at. That's the next one for me to see as in watching. But I know what happens. But
yeah. Well, so I'll start with kind of the three kind of the three tent poles of the night. So the opener was fantastic.
Absolutely.
Just absolutely incredible. In a match I've been wanting to see for the longest of times. So super grateful for that. I kind of thought Ray Phoenix was going to win because Ray Phoenix challenging Claudio down the line to me has more legs, more so than Claudio and a Blackpool Combat Club versus Phoenix and Pentagon, but that also is going to be a good match as well. And now the time we've been waiting for weeks. No, I'm just kidding. But again, Ring of Honor is a standalone show. Why are we getting a Ring of Honor Double Jeopardy match in the first match on Dynamite?
And Ring of Honor, I think maybe we talked about this recently. I feel like I don't have Honor Club. I have seen some of it through other means. Nothing they're doing on Ring of Honor television makes me want to spend $10 to watch Ring of Honor television. I already don't have the 2 hours anyways. That would be hard for me to find. But if they were doing things on Ring of Honor television that made me go, God, I want to see that, then I might try and figure out how to find the 2 hours. I have no idea where I'd find it. But, but they're doing nothing on there. Like, it's basically dark and dark elevation as far as I'm concerned,
and
for the most part.
And the irony for me here is this match alone, again, I don't want to discredit what will translate on the screen versus what I read about spoilers from last weekend. This match alone, however, got me more excited and it was more important and impactful than anything I read from what happened at the tapings.
Yep. Even a fight without honor that I didn't care about when I read.
Right. So therein lies that is a problem. That is a continuity, content, promotional problem that, again, this can be a great standalone brand, and maybe because of, and we'll get to it, the expansion of AEW programming and the Warner Brothers, footprint of having greater content. Maybe that's where all of the eggs are in the basket for Tony Khan right now. And that's fine. But then, you can't bastardize Ring of Honor, for lack of a better term.
I wish Tony Khan, one of Tony Khan's presumed in my mind flaws, I don't know the man, is that he wants to do it all himself. He has people on that roster and on his staff. QT Marshall, Jeff Jarrett, Chris Jericho, Matt Hardy. The recently hired Will Washington from Fightful, who, is a really smart guy. I really enjoyed him on Fightful podcast. He just got arrested. Wow. He got hired, not arrested. Will Washington did not get arrested. I don't know why that came out of my mouth. He got hired as the director of wrestling administration, I think was the title. And what I've read is part of what he's supposed to be doing is helping with continuity in storylines. And I'm like, that's good, because there have been times where that hasn't happened in AEW. So having somebody, and again, now Tony Khan has to listen. And so, that's always the piece. The booker has to listen to the person that they're asking to help them with that. But let Jeff Jarrett have a chance at booking Ring of Honor. Let Chris Jericho, have somebody else just book it. You're the final stamp, fine, whatever, that's cool. But let them take care of the storylines and that. You have people who can do that for you. And then he can focus on Dynamite and on Collision, which appears to be the new show coming up on Saturdays, and Rampage, which I've read is going to become more of the Sunday Night Heat. So Rampage is going to become more of the not as important. Although, let's be honest, Rampage, other than CM Punk debuting, has never been anywhere near Dynamite's level.
And I'll speak to the Rampage taping now, because there's not much more to say to it. It was fine. It makes a night really, really long. I understand why they tape it after Dynamite, to not maybe give anything away that you would maybe have Dynamite lead into. That being said, they could have easily taped Rampage or one or two matches on Rampage before Dynamite, not burned the crowd out and got us out of there a little bit earlier. We did not leave the venue. I did not leave the venue until 11:15. And not again, am I able to stay up late? Absolutely. Was it a long night for me after a busy day? Yes. Right. So just being mindful of that. And I didn't have to travel far. I had to leave and go 15 minutes from the venue to get back to where I was staying. Not everybody has that luxury. So
I was going to say, had you gone over there on a regular week where you didn't have work, having you in Detroit, you'd have had, what is it, a 2-hour drive? Two and a half.
Yeah, two and a half. Yeah, and our friend Glenn, who listens to this podcast on occasion. Glenn, if you're listening now, thanks. Great to see you on Wednesday, bud. He left in the middle of Rampage because there was nothing on Rampage that was like, I have to stay to see this. Again, It was fine, but it didn't. So I'll stop there because we're talking about Dynamite. But if that was not a ringing endorsement to tune in Saturday night to watch Rampage, I don't know what else is. The international title match was fantastic. And I had an inkling before Wednesday that I thought this was the spot for Daniel Garcia to win the title, for Orange Cassidy to have his really great, successful reign finally come to an end, especially because they've been really emphasizing his hand injury. This was great. Like the final stretch of this match, I really can't wait to watch it on TV because I loved it live. And I was really, really thinking down the stretch, these false finishes, when the end eventually happens, either way, it's going to be great. And I felt it was. I don't know how it came across live. I'd love to hear how you perceived it. Again, I'll have my opinion when I get a chance to watch later today.
Yeah, no, I've seen, like I said, up to the 3-way or the 6-man, excuse me. I can't talk today all of a sudden. No, Cassidy and Garcia was super good. I love, again, kind of like the Cody thing, that a good wrestler caught another wrestler with a pin. And they were kind of trading those back and forth there at the end. And I also like in that case, when they're trading those 2 counts back and forth, where all of a sudden one of them gets a 3, because we've seen the spot a million times where it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then we finally both stand up and do this and everybody cheers. They didn't do that. You actually had one that got 1, 2, 3 and the match is over. So I like when that, we've seen that occasionally before. The story they're telling of Orange Cassidy, I loved his comment at the end of the little promo right before the 6-man match, because they've seen through that promo right after witches are banned from ringside. And then you have Orange just say, I'm so tired, because he's been defending this title basically every week. And it might have been every week. I'd have to look back to know whether it's for sure every week, but almost, if not. And that seems to be the story too. Like you said, that the hand injury, and then he's getting tired because he's just defending, and someone's going to catch him at some point here. And Garcia would have been a great one to do that with, and he may yet still be the one. They could do that. They could run it back, because it was a definitive win, but it wasn't Garcia could say, hey, you got lucky, you caught me. I want another shot. I would love to double or nothing. Give me Orange and Garcia again. That'd be fine.
Cosign 100%. And with wherever we're headed with Jericho, Adam Cole, or whatever becomes of that, I would love to see Daniel Garcia begin to re-elevate and break out. There's been these, again, and this is not a flaw of AEW, but it's definitely one of those things where there's a lot of ups and downs with certain wrestlers. We talked about it big time before with FTR, right? I think we're in a spot where we're seeing the Daniel Garcia thing. I think where he was really up last year. The Danielson feud as a great example, and right. Then now the downward slope that's been where we found ourselves, and now I hope this is the upward trajectory again. Go ahead. You were going to say something about, I think, Jericho and Cole.
So do you get the backstage interviews and the segments? Do those show on the Tron?
Not everything. I remember. So that's the one thing I recalled from last year when I went back and watched Blood and Guts on DVR. There were things that some of the pre-tapes or some of the things that happened backstage weren't always seen to us. Like, I think it was 2 or 3 segs. I don't, again, until I see today, I won't know what I didn't see, perhaps.
Did you see the Jericho? Was there a Jericho interview with Roddy?
Yes. Yeah, we did. Okay. We did get that. Yeah.
And you see where this is going too. It's false count anywhere, because they're going to leave the building.
Yes.
And Adam Cole's going to be standing outside of the building. It's going to be great. I can't wait. Although Jericho Appreciation Society may be outside of the building too, and which I did think was great with Roddy though, going, "Hey, I got a lawyer too." They're banned. Jericho reacted well to that. And then I was curious too, did you see the two returns that happened backstage that went in to see Tony Khan?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And Miro got a huge pop. Thunder Rosa didn't get a big pop. It was really interesting. I was sitting by someone who said they saw Thunder Rosa walking about the concourse. And I was like, dang, why is she showing up as a fan? And then when she showed up on Dynamite, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then at one point during one of the breaks or in between Dynamite and Rampage, Justin Roberts emphasized that Thunder Rosa was on the Spanish announce team for the night. And I was like, that's kind of like a fart in church. Like, she got a pretty decent response when she was backstage, but then now you have her just on Spanish commentary.
Which she has been doing for a little while, and they haven't really played that up at all.
Okay.
I wondered too, though, and I knew she, again, I listened to a review of the show before I started watching it because I knew we were going to talk about it today, and I didn't think I was going to get to see any of it. I ended up getting to see, a little over half of it so far. I wonder if people didn't recognize her right away because she didn't have like her face paint, and all of that. And Renee said, like, Thunder Rosa, what are you doing here? So that helped, but I thought that, but Miro is so recognizable. And let's be honest, Miro is a bigger star than Thunder Rosa at this point. He's more well known from his days as Rusev and all of that. So I was excited to see Miro back. That's a guy who I think they've been missing the boat to not have on the show. Everything I've heard is he's been healthy for quite a while, and they were just waiting for the right time to bring him back.
And if we're going to be expanding the TV reach, right, which we will yet still talk about, before we get there, the main event, Jim, I cannot wait for you to watch this main event.
I'm looking forward to it.
Probably
tomorrow, but
yeah, just absolutely incredible. Just everything from the intros to the pre-match stuff. And I feel like I thought I knew where we were going. I still don't know for sure where we're going because the wild cards in this for me are Konosuke Takeshita and Hangman,
who did not appear on Wednesday. Is that correct?
He did not appear on Wednesday. So it was super interesting. So Tony Khan does a great job, in my opinion, of coming out and like just, hey, audience, thanks for being here. Your support is important to us. We've got a great show. We've got tons of stars. I think it was one of the strongest Dynamite lineups we've had, with some of the matches. And he was right.
He was.
And take that. And we did not get Jericho at all in person, which I was surprised because I would have thought with what Jericho said, he would have been out for commentary on Rampage. He wasn't. So that was a little bit surprising. We had no Adam Cole. We had no Britt Baker. We had no Jamie Hayter. We had no Wardlow. And I could name more, but those are the first four names that come to mind that have been promoted pretty regularly. And we didn't get them at all. Right. So
did Danielson and Yuta end up in front of the crowd?
So Danielson comes out with Mox.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then there's I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there's pre-match shenanigans involving the Elite and BCC before both men finally get in the cage. So okay. I'll let that be for now because I really want you.
All I had seen, because I've only seen so far, was them standing in the back, which easily could have been taped the week before. And I did hear that the Jericho Strong thing was actually taped a week before,
which makes sense because Jericho's been on tour, so it's like and the one thing I'm always
AEW is really smart about that. They do that a lot. Where if somebody's not going to be on the show the next week, they tape something beforehand. Like, duh, this is
And here's what I'm going to do when I go back and see those today, because I had wondered that. Right, I'm going to be really paying attention to Renee Paquette's outfit. Like, is she wearing the same thing or is she wearing something different? Or are they like you talk about Will Washington and continuity, like continuity even in your apparel.
That's a good point. Yeah, let me know what you see on that because I didn't think about it. Even though I had heard that the Jericho thing had been taped the week before. I'm trying to think if it was Renee though, or it might have been Lexi.
It might have been. Either way, it's very interesting.
Which would be an easy way to solve that if you just had Lexi do it and Lexi didn't do anything else that night, then it's fine. But yeah, if it's Renee, that would be interesting to see if she wore the same thing. Hey, Renee, what are you going to wear next week? I need to change into that real quick. Did you bring it with?
Right. Yeah. Bring two outfits, this week's and next week's. But yeah, the main event was just fantastic. I described it in our friends group as beautifully, athletically violent, or something to that effect. I probably, if I read it, it would actually sound better than what I just said. But it really was that. And you have cage matches that happen all the time, and it was really interesting because when I was leaving out of town yesterday, I woke up in Detroit and worked for half the day there on the Detroit sports radio station that I listen to when I'm in that area. One of the they have a 10 to noon show, and one of the people that's one of the hosts there had gone to AEW. So it's always interesting, and he's a wrestling fan, but the wrestling's not a big staple on the show. But when they have wrestling in town and he goes, he'll speak to it. So is it so interesting having someone who is a fan, but like when you hear stuff, there's some things where like you enough, but you don't. So there's some things that you don't know. So having him describe his experience was interesting, but he made a really good example or a really good analogy of the comparison of the cage match of being not your standard cage match. If you think of a pro wrestling cage match, and the old trope is you're raking their face against the cage. We didn't have anybody's face get raked across the cage on Wednesday night. We had all these other creative spots. So it was just really, really, really well done. An incredibly just well built and well told story. And I know you know already what happened, but I'm trying not to get into it because I really just want the organic feel for you as you watch it to have it have the meaning that it can have. I know that when the match played out, there were spots that had me like with my jaw on the floor. At the end, I'm like, I had my hands on my head, like I can't believe what I'm seeing, and like that's the emotional feeling that you want professional wrestling to give you. And so when you can be that invested and feel that when you're in the arena or watching on TV, it's one of the most rewarding things as a fan. So as I mentioned, I don't know where they're going with these two groups. There's got to be something at Double or Nothing, but with the clock ticking on that, what will that be, and how will we get there from what happens on and what happened on Wednesday night?
Absolutely. And the last thing here is we're kind of running up against our time is there's big AEW news upcoming next week. Tony Khan mentioned it on Dynamite that there's a big announcement coming from TNT next week, and then they'll follow up on it on Dynamite next week. Obviously, we've talked about it before. It's the announcement of AEW Collision, which is set to be a 2-hour, I believe, live prime time, which would add touring, more touring to them. I think it's live.
It's got to be. It's got to be.
Right. It's got to be. You can't do 5 hours of taping every week. I mean, that's just crazy. So a 2-hour live Saturday night primetime show, which is interesting. It's not going to be there. There was rumor it was going to be TBS at 6:05. It sounds like now it's going to be probably that 6:05 Eastern, I think it was, and 5:05 was what I used to watch WCW at. It's probably going to be that 7 to 9 my time, 8 to 10 your time, normal where where Dynamite runs, but on Saturdays. Lots of talk that's why you're seeing more talent come back. Miro, Thunder Rosa. What Sean Ross Sapp has said is he's heard it's not going to be like a hard brand split. It's not going to be Raw, SmackDown, but there's going to be a little bit of that. You're going to see, like WCW tried to do with Thunder. They tried to have certain people more focused on Thunder and others on Nitro. So Miro, Thunder Rosa, may see a lot of time on Collision. It seems like perhaps that's why they're coming in. And the big one is, and it may be announced next week, maybe at the upfronts as well, is the return of CM Punk coming back. Lots of rumors. He wanted to work. It sounded like he had a meeting with Jericho and they kind of buried some things. Maybe he'd work with Jericho. Obviously, it's a question. Will he work with the Elite or not? And then there's a rumor out there that he wants to face Samoa Joe the first time back in, which that would be really fun for those of us with long-term Ring of Honor fandom. But, I already said I can't find 2 hours to watch Ring of Honor. Now I got to find 2 hours to watch Collision? Like Rampage is probably going to Rampage, honestly, because it seems like it's going the way of even less important than it probably already is. Rampage is probably going to become the thing that, like, if I get to it, I get to it, and if I don't, I'm not going to worry about it unless there's something I hear about that's major. Because now you're adding at least one more hour. Then, if I take the hour of Rampage I watched and move that to Collision, now I'm still trying to find another hour. I don't know what I'm going to do, Tom.
Not enough time in life to, you know what I mean? Like you just, yeah. How do you figure it out?
The odds of me watching Collision live almost ever, they're going to be really low, because if we actually have a Saturday night free that I don't have a trivia or something, then we're trying to, go out to dinner or do something, for the two of us, because we don't get that option all that often. Or if she's not working, all of those kinds of things. So yeah, the odds of me watching Collision live are not. Maybe I'll try to watch the first one if we don't have anything going on that night, just so that I can do that. But yeah, not great. Although I do watch pay-per-views when I, live when I can. So, and therein lies the question too. What do they do when they have a Saturday pay-per-view now with Collision? I mean, they could just preempt it and say, hey, we got a pay-per-view. There are a lot of rumors too, though, that some of those pay-per-views
they run Sunday,
but not always.
They
during
run
the
Sunday.
football season. They run Saturday because they don't want to compete with the NFL. They have had some Saturday pay-per-views.
That's right. That's right.
So
right. I was thinking of like, yeah. Maybe it's a full transition to Sunday, regardless.
It could, yeah, and it could be a lot of rumors too that perhaps some or all of the pay-per-views will move to Max. The new, it used to be HBO Max. Later this month, we'll rebrand to just Max. A lot of rumblings that All In and All Out will both be on that service, or at least that's what Sean Ross Sapp said he thinks would make a lot of sense. And I don't know if he's heard that that's he hasn't reported that that's happening. He has not reported that. That would be really great, because I have HBO Max, so it would save me money. I don't know that would start as soon as Double or Nothing. They do keep saying the word pay-per-view for Double or Nothing, so I kind of feel like it's probably going to be, and it could be like Peacock, or with the WWE Network before Peacock. I guess I don't know now. It was on the WWE Network, but you could still order it on cable pay-per-view. So you could either pay $10 a month and get it down on the network, or you could pay $50 and order it on cable, because that makes absolutely all the sense in the world.
I was looking ahead. The local theater where they've run the AEW pay-per-views for now, I think the better part of a year plus, they already have it on their schedule that Double or Nothing will
and that could still happen even if they're on Max. So
yep. So
I think it's going to be a really exciting week of information next week, especially Wednesday, for AEW. And like I said, I hope the pay-per-views go to Max. It saves me money. I'm AEW, and they've sold 60,000 tickets at Wembley, over 60,000. So everybody who said, "Oh, it's going to be hard, they're not even going to draw 20,000," well, shut up. They drew over 60.
Yeah,
and I love the people, and we've talked about this before. Well, a lot of those are scalpers buying them. Guess what? Tony Khan doesn't care. He's got the money. They bought the tickets.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's cash in hand. So, and Will Ospreay has been announced for that show. Maybe not formally by AEW, but there's reports out there that he's definitely going to be. It makes tons of sense. Yeah. Tons. So I know we're not
shocked to see Nick Aldis work that show. Probably. I know he's doing some stuff with Impact, but AEW and Impact have been friendly before. And I don't know how long his deal with Impact is, anyways. But another English star that I think would make a lot of sense. And I hope Nigel has a role there. I know we talked last time or a couple times ago about maybe Nigel, he's talked about whether that might be a chance for him to come back in the ring. If he's healthy and wants to do it, I'd love to see it. But I just want Nigel there. Like, he could be the host of it or something, I guess. I kind of hate the host gimmick, but, he could do something. He could be the matchmaker for All In or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. And we're not going to be recording next week. We have a little bit of a break because of some outside obligations on my part. We'll be back in 2 weeks. So it's going to be a loaded show because we got 3 pick'ems. It's just crazy. We'll still have Night of Champions. We'll have Battleground, and we'll have Double or Nothing. So join us in 2.
By the way, I don't know if you've seen, Tom, the start times that have been announced, Battleground and Double or Nothing are going head to head.
I mean, I don't know why those in charge of WWE/NXT would do that, but
That's
you
what
know,
they're doing, it looks like.
you can.
And I can tell you right now, if I am free that weekend, which I think I should be, I will be watching Double or Nothing on Sunday night, and I will try to catch Battleground during the day on Monday since I'll be off for Memorial Day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why anyone else, unless you just are completely like Homer WWE and anti AEW, that you
Right.
do anything other. If
Well,
you're a wrestling fan, I
who
don't
has
know
the
why.
money? Who has the
Yeah,
disposable income?
yeah. I don't know why AEW would not be the first choice, but yeah,
I mean, I can't imagine what they'd have to put on Battleground for me to go, oh no, I'm going to watch that instead of Double or Nothing on Sunday night. Like I don't know what they'd put on a WWE premium live event, but definitely not an NXT premium live event. And I like NXT when I see it, but not anywhere like AEW to NXT is just, not even close.
absolutely.
Well, we're up against our stop time here. Jim's got to go to work. That's really what that means. So everybody, it's been a blast again. We will not have a show next week due to life, but join us back on the 26th for what will be a rapid fire head-to-head show. We'll have about an hour and 15 minutes-ish or so to get through 3 shows. So there may be some matches that don't need a lot of conversation. I assume there probably will, and we'll probably just hit those real fast and pick them and move on. But Tom still has that 1 match lead as we go into the 3 of the final 4 shows for this segment of Head to Head. We've got 3 shows in 2 weeks, and then Forbidden Door right at the end of June. So I got to close the gap here, or get buried, depending on how these picks go in 2 weeks. So everybody,
I'm bringing my shovel in 2 weeks.
That's what I figured. Everybody be safe, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks on the 26th for more Two Spot Monkeys Live.